If the red supergiant star Betelgeuse exploded at this very moment, we would witness an extraordinary spectacle of the millennium. The sky would be on fire, and the night would be as bright as day. Betelgeuse is on the verge of exploding, it's a certainty. However, scientists are not entirely in agreement on whether this will happen soon, tomorrow, or in 1,000 years. It is also conceivable that Betelgeuse has already exploded and we haven't noticed it yet. Cosmic explosions occur in our Milky Way galaxy about every 50 years, but supernovae visible from Earth only happen about once every 1,000 years. Betelgeuse, which is about 640 light-years away from Earth, will experience a Type II cosmic explosion, which is particularly spectacular during the day. The explosion of Betelgeuse would drastically change the brightness of the sky. While the sun dominates the sky, the cosmic explosion would be so bright that it would be noticeable even in broad daylight. This brightness could temporarily blind drivers and pilots, similar to a sudden flash of lightning. The risk would be especially high at dawn or dusk, when the sun is lower in the sky and Betelgeuse's brightness would suddenly strike the eyes. This incredibly bright flash would only last a moment before a new point of light would appear, resembling an extremely bright new star. However, no sound would be heard because sound waves cannot travel through the vacuum of space. At night, the explosion would be even more spectacular. For a time, the sky would be illuminated and a new, extremely bright point would suddenly appear in the night sky, brighter than Venus and Jupiter. This new source of light would probably be as bright as the full moon and could bathe the landscape in a marvelous light for weeks. We would likely not see the stars near Betelgeuse during this period because of the intense light from Betelgeuse. Eclipses would also be extremely rare. While it's certain that Betelgeuse will explode, we don't know exactly when it will happen. Astronomers around the world are constantly monitoring the star, and some satellites are even pointed at Betelgeuse 24 hours a day. Any change, no matter how small, is immediately recorded. When the alarm for the cosmic explosion goes off, astronomers and stargazers immediately point their telescopes at the event. Space telescopes like the Hubble Space Telescope or the James Webb Space Telescope would take detailed photographs. The measuring instruments at observatories would record a massive increase in brightness globally, accompanied by an expansion of gamma rays and X-rays. Radio telescopes would detect drastic changes in the radio wave spectrum, and gravitational wave sensors, which record even the smallest changes in the fabric of space-time, would most likely indicate the explosion before we could even see it. Gravitational waves are tiny changes in space-time caused by moving matter in the universe. In addition to gravitational waves, exceptionally high neutrino currents would likely reach us. The best neutrino detectors in the world, located in Antarctica and the Arctic, would likely be among the first to register the cosmic explosion. What happens after the explosion? One thing is certain. Betelgeuse will scatter incredible amounts of matter and energy into space. The components of the star will spread across the galaxy over billions of kilometers and light-years. The shock wave from the explosion would have a significant impact on the immediate environment of Betelgeuse. However, the distances in the universe are so vast that it's not certain whether nearby stars would suffer serious damage. Betelgeuse is the first red supergiant star to explode directly in our cosmic neighborhood, and it's the first time we can witness such an event with modern technology. It will be a shock to study the true extent of the explosion over the course of several weeks. Shortly after the explosion, Betelgeuse will remain visible as an extremely bright point in the sky for weeks or even months. Over time, its brightness will gradually decrease. This means that we will no longer be able to see it with the naked eye, but astronomers will continue to monitor even the smallest changes with their telescopes. After the explosion of Betelgeuse, a remnant will remain, either a neutron star or a black hole. Betelgeuse could even create a spectacular cosmic nebula like the colorful Crab Nebula. Such nebulae can last for millions of years. This means that old stars don't disappear completely but leave behind a remnant, or a black hole that provides a wealth of material for research. Have you ever wondered what Betelgeuse looked like in the past? We humans like to be sentimental and look back. So let's reconstruct the history of Betelgeuse, and I'm sure we'll find some surprises. About 10 million years ago, Betelgeuse formed in a dense molecular cloud. This cloud of gas and dust was made up of freely traveling materials in the universe, and also the remnants of previous supernovae. Betelgeuse was therefore formed from the matter of older stars. At some point, the cloud became so dense that it began to collapse under its own gravity, and a protostar was formed. This protostar gathered more and more mass until nuclear fusion began. Betelgeuse was not alone. The young star formed in a cosmic nursery filled with newborn stars. This bright and chaotic region may have resembled the Orion Nebula today. The environment in the star-forming nursery was characterized by strong winds and intense UV radiation. Betelgeuse was an extremely massive star and was probably much brighter than its siblings. As a massive star, Betelgeuse had a much shorter life expectancy than smaller stars. It exhausted its fuel reserves quickly. In its core, hydrogen atoms fused to form helium, releasing incredible amounts of energy. This phase lasted only a few million years, a brief period in cosmic time. During this phase, Betelgeuse was probably a blue supergiant, 1,000 times hotter and brighter than the Sun. In the middle of Betelgeuse's life cycle, its core's hydrogen reserves were already depleted, and the star began to fuse helium into carbon and oxygen. It was at this point that Betelgeuse slowly began to explode and turned into a red supergiant. Its brightness continued to increase, and it began to lose mass periodically. Large quantities of matter in the form of a powerful stellar wind. At that time, the red supergiant already had a diameter larger than the orbit of Mars around the Sun, and its vivid red color fascinated the inhabitants of Earth. An interesting question, of course, is how the planets around Betelgeuse were able to undergo an evolution similar to ours. Betelgeuse may have gathered a group of colored planets around it. Some specialists consider it incomprehensible that life could have existed there, as we currently assume that life needs billions of years to develop. Given Betelgeuse's short lifespan, this would be rather doubtful. However, we can never rule it out because we lack comparative values, and we would probably make a radical mistake if we tried to apply Earth-like conditions to other worlds. What is certain is that the planets around Betelgeuse became increasingly hotter as the star grew. It gradually engulfed them. If there had been life there, it would have been destroyed. The extreme radiation from the star would obliterate it in a fraction of a second. What is magical about such a cosmic event is the immense powers and incredible timescales involved, which are almost beyond our comprehension. The internal upheavals of Betelgeuse are so enormous that we can hardly grasp them with our minds. When Betelgeuse exhausted the helium in its core, it began to fuse heavier elements like carbon, neon, oxygen, and finally silicon, which fused to form iron. This process accelerated, and with each step, less energy was produced as the heavier elements increased. Betelgeuse became heavier, and at some point, it will collapse under its own gravity. The massive star will then tear apart in a fraction of a second, and all the remaining energy will be released in a supernova explosion. The question the world is asking is, when will this happen? When will this star explode, and will we see it? Betelgeuse is increasingly unstable, as shown by all observations. It is undoubtedly in its final stage, but how long this will last remains a mystery. Astronomers are using a variety of telescopes and techniques to closely observe Betelgeuse. In addition to the Hubble Space Telescope and the James Webb Space Telescope, the very powerful telescope of the European Southern Observatory and the ALMA telescope in the Atacama Desert are used to observe the star. These telescopes' investigations show us the chemical structures and changes in the star's luminosity. Between late 2019 and early 2020, the star's brightness decreased by about 25%, which caught the world's attention and sparked speculation about an impending cosmic explosion. However, after intensive analysis, astronomers concluded that this dimming was likely due to a combination of factors: a massive cloud of dust ejected from the star and large convection cells on the star's surface, cooler than the rest of the star, obscured it for several weeks. Scientists also observed another dimming of Betelgeuse, though less spectacular, in 2024. This event is thought to be a direct result of the Great Dimming in 2020. Although all of these phenomena can be explained, they show how unstable the star is and can be considered significant clues that Betelgeuse might soon explode, or may have already exploded. What's crazy is that the star could have turned into a cosmic explosion hundreds of years ago, but we won't see its light for another 650 years. What will happen? Many people regularly look up to the Orion constellation because it is one of the most famous and impressive in the night sky. Betelgeuse shines with a reddish glow in the right shoulder of the mythical hunter, who is revered and has mythological significance in many cultures around the world. In Greek mythology, Orion is described as a mighty hunter who was loved by Artemis, the goddess of the hunt. His figure in the sky represents strength, mental fortitude, and the thirst for adventure. Betelgeuse, with its striking red color, has always captivated and inspired many stories of gods and heroes. When Betelgeuse explodes, Orion will be changed forever. The bright point that has watched over us as a protective star will be replaced by a cosmic explosion, and eventually by darkness. It is moving to think that this familiar celestial body, which has accompanied us for millennia, will soon disappear. The loss of Betelgeuse will remind us that the universe itself is constantly evolving, and that even seemingly eternal stars are subject to a cycle of birth, life, and death. Subscribe to the channel now. There are many other exciting videos to come.